I'm not going to do a poem until after.
So later.
So, PowerPoint? Yeah. Pictures? Yeah. I'm just going to talk about all this stuff, okay? So, what you see in the top right is the logo for the New York City Urban Project, and then you see right behind that is a tree. So you can take the logo down and just leave the tree out. That'd be awesome. So InterVarsity Christian Fellowship's mission is to see lives transformed, campuses renewed, and world changes developed. InterVarsity's urban projects are catalytic programs that help transform students into world changers. So somebody said they raised their hand like, what's a catalyst? Okay, if you have a chemical reaction, a catalyst speeds that thing up. We've talked about that a little bit. You can get a year's worth of leadership development in an urban project, where you can understand if a student's going to be a leader or if they've got some emotional baggage, some things that they brought that they need to fix before they can be leaders. In New York City, we do this by working in partnership with nonprofit organizations that tutor and mentor, feed the homeless, and fight sex trafficking and slavery. So what you can imagine with the tree is that in the roots, you have all the campuses, students, compassionate, talented, wonderful people. While I was sitting there, I got 5 emails from people who want to come to Feed 500. Some of them Cooper Union students. They want to bring 5 of their friends. It is much easier to invite someone to feed the homeless than it is to invite them to a small group Bible study a lot of the time. But they get to come to that small group. So you plant seeds for gigs. You plant seeds for small groups. That's how these things reflect back on campuses. Now, I got emails from mothers, right, saying, I want to, can my 4-year-old come to do Feed 500? Yes, they can, as long as they know how to put sandwich together, okay? You show them how to do that, and you can do it. These are donors. That mom is a future donor. When she leaves, she'll be asked to be a monthly donor for the Urban Project. When she leaves, she'll be asked to pray regularly for the community that she lives in. The New York City Urban Project proclaims faith in the resurrection of Jesus into systemic injustice and wishes to reflect God's kingdom inside and outside the halls of academia. So, yes, how does that happen? So you imagine a forest, okay? That's where the tree comes in. There will be an animation on the website and a big graphic as soon as my volunteers complete them. So in the roots of this tree, you have Melissa, Max, and Chanel, who live in New York City. Melissa was a student at Hunter College. She was a senior this year. She did the summer immersion program. She was actually not involved in her campus chapter at all. She went to a local church in Chinatown on the Lower East Side. Max is just moved to New York City. He went to the University of Washington and now works at a consulting firm in Manhattan. And Chanel was a student at Baruch College, commuter school in the Bronx, and from the Bronx, going to school on the East Side. And so you have those 3 people. Melissa, these are all people in the roots, right? So Melissa, student not involved in InterVarsity, but involved in her ethnic-specific church in Chinatown. Chanel, a student who's a small group leader in her fellowship at Baruch. And Max, who recent graduate, just moved to New York City and wants to get involved in social justice. So how do they all fit in this tree as a campus ministry? Because Nycup gets confused a lot of times for being an urban ministry, but it's actually a campus ministry under InterVarsity. It's not a beast organization trying to take InterVarsity over in New York City. So, I get called that a lot. So, Melissa, in her application, we had, with the summer immersion program application, you asked the basic questions. You asked, like, who are your mentors, what do you want to do, stuff like that. But the last question is this: if you had 6 weeks and unlimited resources to do anything, what would you do with Jesus in a neighborhood? And so Melissa said she wanted to deepen her understanding of faith and justice so that she doesn't just work in the city as she nears graduation, but actually cares for the Lazarus at her gate. So she's looking for an internship to gain the skills in nonprofit work, but also grow her faith. So she Googled internships and found Nycup, right? Max, a recent college graduate, he just finished Shane Claiborne's book, Irresistible Revolution, and he was really excited that me and Shane were friends. And so he said he wanted to run hard and fast for Christ, particularly serving the homeless in his neighborhood near Penn Station. But how does he reach out to people who are nothing like him? He didn't have an InterVarsity experience in college, and so his pastor, who is a good friend of mine, told him to get involved with Nycup. Chanel is a small group Bible study leader who wants to grow her small group and wants them to be much more than a group of people who meet every week to eat and pray and then go back to their regularly scheduled program. So she wants to step out of the boat like Peter, she said, and transform her campus to do God's justice for the weak. And her staff worker, because I go to all the area staff meetings, I talk with all the staff in New York City and New Jersey, and so her staff worker said, look, email Jonathan, I promise you, he'll email you back. He's addicted to his BlackBerry, he's gonna email. Okay, and so we did. And so as I said, you got students, professionals, and faith leaders in the roots of this tree. Now, they've been inspired to serve, but they don't know how to, and they're not sure how to even attack problems like modern-day slavery and educational inequality. And so that's all the roots. So if you look at the branches, okay, as I said, the 3 year-round things that we do are tutoring and mentoring, feeding the homeless, and fighting sex trafficking and slavery. We do not do anything else. Like, everything that we need to do comes under those 3 things when you talk about a year-round program. If you tutor and mentor, you are fighting sex trafficking and slavery. The average entry age is 12 to 14 years old. So if you tutor and mentor children, they won't be exploited. So I teach, or I feel like God gave me this thing, it's like pie, okay? Poverty plus isolation equals exploitation. Okay, if you have poverty, there are opportunities for exploitation. If you are alone, you have opportunities for exploitation. So therefore, you make sure that when people have food, when they have the things they need, they have a community around them, they won't be exploited. And so those are the 3 things that we do year-round. Spring break plunges and summer immersion programs invite all students and volunteers to deepen their understandings about how systemic injustice impacts their own lives, and then they get to write their own story of redemption grounded in Jesus and the communities that they live in. Now, spring break, the way that works is we live in the Bowery Mission. The Bowery Mission started in 1928 or 1913. Memory escapes me right now. But they just celebrated a huge anniversary. So we live in that mission with those 80 guys for a week. We feed about 900 people a day. Students serve, they chapel 3 times, so we lead chapel at 5:30 in the morning. The 200 men that are sleeping on the floor wake up. We have service, we eat breakfast. They serve in the mission through lunch. They have a break, and then we concentrate on whatever the teaching is for that day. Most of it, what we do is racial reconciliation and class reconciliation for spring break, and then we focus on fighting sex trafficking and slavery using PIE as a lens to do that. I'll get to the Bible studies in a second. Now, Nycup, how does this fit in this image? You've got people in need in the branches, and you've got people that want to help in the roots. And so Nycup acts as the trunk of the tree. But we are not a nonprofit consulting agency. That's not what it is, okay? So Nycup acts as the trunk of the tree, connecting passionate, talented individuals with the organizations who need them, introducing them to God's love, a love that breaks all boundaries and dives deep into the needs of our world, right? So Max, the journey for Max being in the roots, like here's about Feed 500, here's about Nycup's partnerships to fight sex trafficking. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Okay, here's about Feed 500 and comes, right? So here's a guy, sends an email, decides I'm going to be there. Here's a person who makes 6 times as much as the university staff worker, who is sitting there saying, I come out of my apartment at Penn Station and feed people and sit, but I don't have any training around it. So that's how he got connected to us. So he comes to the Love Kitchen in Manhattan Bible Church where Feed 500 is based. Nycup, I'm not trying to create another feeding program. Those things exist. Yes, we live in a city where 1 in 8 children is hungry, and 1 in 5 people is on food stamps in New York City. So you have a place where people are trying to get food. So Feed 500 became that place where we saw a church, and they said, as I said, the people in need, right? Feed 500, Love Kitchen is saying we need more people to help feed the people who are coming. So Max is the person who wants to be one of those people who helps feed people, so we bring them on board. And so that's where Josh was talking about yesterday. We have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people come to do Feed 500 last year, most of them being non-Christian. So Max comes, he attends, and then he's struck by the training and the physical and the spiritual need, because he's like, I don't know how to pray for these guys. They have addictions, they have this, they have that. But he's sitting with students who have done it. And he's sitting with students who are actually living this stuff out, and he meets people, and he's like, okay, I'm going to donate to what you're doing, and I'm going to partner. And so now in December, we're going to start Feed a Few workshops, where Feed 500 is a great thing. But we have a deficit at the New York City Urban Project. Therefore, I can't go to Costco and buy food for 500 people every couple weeks. So instead, what we'll do is turn Feed 500 into a destination event so that students from upstate and New Jersey can come, and instead of just feeding for 4 hours, they're coming, feeding for 4 hours, eating, and then figuring out how they can do this back in their own context. So you have Feed 500, which is the big event that they pay for, and you have Feed a Few. So everybody leaves with the armbands that we use, the cards that we use that will hopefully be in English, Spanish, Korean, and Mandarin for their neighborhoods, and then they leave with the mindset of this is what we do every day. So instead of having 1,000 people last year who were just trained to feed 500 during the day, there'll be 1,000 people who are trained in doing this all the time. Because they have a blog, they write things up, and you'll see that on the website if you ever go to nycurbanproject.com. So that's what Max sees, right? Now Chanel, she came to Feed 500 too, but instead she actually heard about the partnership of fighting trafficking. So we did a partnership with Call and Response. She brought 20 students from Baruch to a screening, and she's sitting there and saying, okay, we want to learn what it looks like to fight slavery. So I partnered her with Stop Child Trafficking Now, and also did some training with them with the Not For Sale campaign. And now she's in law school and is still involved with advocating for fighting trafficking, and is going to work for IJM or start her own organization at Rutgers. That's what she's doing right now. Melissa, busy with school because she was busy with her church and busy in her school, and so she came to the summer immersion program. And actually the last question in her application was, I want to see all of the things that Nycup does available to the community in one day. And I was like, okay. So she sits down and she's like, so are you going to do like that thing I was talking about? I was like, well, yeah. Actually, the last day of the program, we're going to have a Hope Resource Fair where all these things come together and we're going to present to the neighborhood. Your job for the summer is to go around to the entire community and tell them about the Hope Fair in English and in Spanish, ask them what their needs are for the first 2 weeks, and then we're going to work on providing those needs for the last 3 weeks. And so 150 people that are not part of the church, immigrants from the community, came out and got training on healthcare, got training on nutrition, got screened for diabetes and all these other things. The bakery that we started, that's a whole nother thing, but we had an entrepreneurship track for summer, actually did all the food and stuff like that. So it was a really good day, inspired by a question asked by a student on an application. That's where the need-based internships come from. I don't pick all the internships. I picked some of them, but that last question is really if a student has a specific dream to want to live that out, then we try and do that. This year, out of the questions, we'll be having a journalism and documentarian internship. So they'll be interviewing homeless people and sex trafficked victims that we work with and retelling their stories for people who come to the website. We're going to try to grow the website by 150% this year. So we have about 2,000 to 3,000 hits a month. We hopefully to get to about 10,000 hits where students in New York and New Jersey are reading about other students being inspired and doing their thing. Now, trees don't exist by themselves, so there's an ecosystem around them. So the sun and the sky, obviously, like those things sustain trees. So Isaiah 6, the Bible studies that we use are in Isaiah